I came home early and found my wife in bed with my best friend, so I left. 6 months later, karma caught up with them. 6 months after I came home early and found my wife in bed with my best friend, they both showed up at my front door. Together. Broke. Exhausted. Desperate. And asking me for help. But before I tell you what happened that night, you need to understand what they did to me. Because I did not walk away because of one mistake. I did not disappear because I was being dramatic. And I did not cut them off because I was too weak to forgive. I left because the moment I opened my bedroom door, I realized my marriage, my friendship, and almost my entire adult life had been built on lies. My name is Matthew Carter. I was 38 years old when everything fell apart. At the time, I thought I had a good life. Not perfect. But solid. I had a stable job as a project manager for a commercial construction company. I owned a modest house in Ohio. I had savings. A retirement plan. A wife I loved. And a best friend I trusted more than almost anyone in the world. His name was Brandon Hayes. Brandon and I had known each other since college. We were not just drinking buddies or casual friends. He was like a brother to me. He stood beside me at my wedding. He helped me move into my first apartment. He was there when my father died. When his small business failed, I loaned him money. When his girlfriend kicked him out, I let him sleep in my guest room. When people asked me who I trusted most, Brandon's name was always near the top. My wife, Claire, used to joke that Brandon was basically family. I believed that. That was my first mistake. Claire and I had been married for 7 years. She was smart. Beautiful. Funny when she wanted to be. She worked in marketing for a medical equipment company and had a way of making everyone around her feel like they were the most important person in the room. At least, that was how she made me feel in the beginning. The first few years were happy. We traveled. Hosted dinners. Talked about children. Talked about upgrading the house. Talked about growing old together. Then slowly, things changed. Not all at once. Betrayal rarely arrives with a warning sign. It comes quietly. One small lie at a time. Claire started staying late at work. Then she started going out with coworkers more often. Then she started guarding her phone. Brandon changed too. He stopped dropping by when I was home. But somehow, he was always around when I was not. At first, I did not connect those things. Why would I? This was my wife. And my best friend, the two people I trusted most. One Tuesday morning, my boss told me a site inspection had been canceled. That meant I could go home early. I remember feeling excited. Not suspicious. Excited. I stopped at a bakery and bought Claire's favorite lemon cake. Then I picked up flowers from a small shop near our neighborhood. I had been busy for weeks. Working long hours. Missing dinners. I thought maybe the surprise would make her happy. I pulled into the driveway around 1:30. Brandon's truck was parked across the street. That was strange. But not alarming. Maybe he had stopped by to borrow tools. Maybe he was helping Claire with something. I walked to the front door holding the flowers and cake. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I called out, "Claire?" No answer. I set the cake on the kitchen counter. Then I heard something upstairs. A laugh. A low voice. A voice I knew. Brandon. My stomach tightened. I walked toward the stairs. Slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. At the top of the stairs, I heard Claire laugh again. Not a normal laugh. Not polite. Not casual. Intimate. Soft. The kind of laugh a wife should not be sharing with another man in the middle of the afternoon. My hand was shaking when I reached the bedroom door. It was slightly open. Just enough. I pushed it. And my life ended. Claire was in our bed. With Brandon. My wife. My best friend. In the bed I had slept in the night before. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Claire saw me first. Her face went pale. Brandon turned his head and froze. I did not yell. I did not hit him. I did not throw the flowers. I did not even speak at first. I just stood there. Looking at them, trying to understand how two people I loved could look so guilty and yet so familiar. Like this was not the first time. Like they had done this before. Many times. That realization hurt more than the scene itself. Claire pulled the sheet to her chest. "Matthew," Brandon sat up. "Man, listen. Man," that was what he said. Not sorry. Not forgive me. Not I destroyed your life. Just. Man. Something inside me went cold. I looked at Claire. Then at Brandon, then back at Claire. The flowers slipped from my hand and landed on the floor. No one picked them up. I turned around, walked downstairs, grabbed my keys, and left. Claire ran after me, half-dressed, crying my name. Brandon stayed upstairs. Coward. I got into my truck and drove. No destination, no plan. Just away. I drove for almost 4 hours. When I finally stopped, I was sitting in a motel parking lot in a town I did not recognize. My phone had 37 missed calls. Claire. Brandon. Claire again. Then my mother, then Brandon again. I did not answer any of them. That night, Claire sent me a message. Please come home. We need to talk. Then Brandon sent one. It was not what it looked like. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It was not what it looked like. What else could it possibly be? A business meeting? A misunderstanding? A medical emergency that required my wife and my best friend to be naked in my bed? I turned off my phone, checked into the motel, and sat on the edge of the bed until sunrise. The next morning, I made 3 calls. First, to my boss. I told him I needed emergency personal leave. He did not ask many questions. Second, to a divorce attorney. Third, to a realtor. Because I already knew one thing. I was never sleeping in that house again. By noon, Claire had started calling from unknown numbers. I ignored them. By evening, Brandon sent a long message. He said he loved me like a brother. He said he never meant to hurt me. He said Claire had been lonely. He said one thing led to another. I read that message twice. Then deleted it. Because people always say one thing led to another when they do not want to admit they made choices. One kiss led to another. One lie led to another. One afternoon led to another. But nobody accidentally ends up in another man's bed. Especially not your best friend's bed. 3 days later, my mother convinced me to meet Claire. She said I needed closure. She said running away was not healthy. She said marriage was complicated. So I agreed. Not because I wanted to reconcile. Because I wanted to hear Claire say it to my face. We met at a quiet coffee shop. Claire looked terrible. No makeup. Red eyes. Wedding ring still on. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. She flinched like I had slapped her. Matthew, I am so sorry. I said nothing. She started crying. It was a mistake. I laughed. Not loudly. Just enough. A mistake? She nodded quickly. Yes. A terrible mistake. How long? She looked down. Matthew, how long? Silence. That silence answered before she did. 4 months, she whispered. 4 months. Not one mistake. Not one afternoon. 4 months. 4 months of lies. 4 months of coming home to me. 4 months of kissing me goodnight. 4 months of sleeping beside me after sleeping with him. I leaned back in my chair. Something in my chest broke quietly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like glass cracking under pressure. Claire began talking fast. She said she felt ignored. She said I worked too much. She said Brandon understood her. She said she never stopped loving me. I listened. Then I asked one question. Did you love me when you brought him into our bed? She stopped crying. Because there was no answer that helped her. I stood up. She grabbed my sleeve. Please, we can fix this. I looked at her hand. Then at her face. No. That was the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. Not guilt. Fear. Because she realized I meant it. I left the coffee shop. And that was the last time I saw my wife for 6 months. At least, that was what I thought. After that meeting, I disappeared from Claire's life completely. Not dramatically. Not publicly. Quietly. I blocked her number. Blocked Brandon. Blocked every social media account connected to either of them. I moved out of the house within a week. My attorney advised me not to abandon the property legally, so I did everything correctly. Documented everything. Photographed every room. Listed every item I removed. Kept receipts. Forwarded mail. Changed passwords. Opened new bank accounts. Removed Claire from anything she had no legal right to access. For the first time in my life, I understood why paperwork mattered. Pain makes you emotional. Betrayal makes you reckless. But legal documents keep you alive. Claire hated that. She expected the old version of me. The version who would answer every call. Listen to every explanation. Comfort her while she cried. Protect her from consequences. That man was gone. The new version of me spoke through my lawyer. And only through my lawyer. 2 weeks after I filed for divorce, Claire sent a letter to my office. Not an email. A handwritten letter. My assistant handed it to me like it was something fragile. I knew her handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. I wanted to know which version of the story she was telling herself. The letter was 6 pages long. 6 pages of excuses. She wrote that she felt lonely. That I worked too much. That Brandon had been there during a difficult time. That she never planned for it to happen. That she still loved me. That she wanted counseling. That marriage should survive hard seasons. At the very end, she wrote one line that made me stop. Please do not punish both of us for one mistake. One mistake. Again. I folded the letter. Put it back in the envelope. And sent it to my attorney. Because if she wanted to reduce 4 months of betrayal to one mistake, she could do it in writing. That letter became evidence. Not because I needed revenge, because I needed clarity. And evidence has a way of cutting through emotional fog. The next month was brutal. People started choosing sides. They always do. Some friends called me immediately, told me they were sorry. Told me Brandon was dead to them. Told me Claire had destroyed everything. Others were quieter. Too quiet. That silence told me more than words ever could. Then came the worst part. My mother. She invited me to dinner one Sunday evening. I thought she wanted to check on me. I thought she wanted to make sure I was eating, sleeping, functioning. Instead, when I walked into her dining room, Claire was sitting at the table. I stopped in the doorway. My mother stood quickly. "Matthew, please do not leave." Claire's eyes were red. She looked smaller than I remembered. My stepfather stared at his plate. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then my mother said the sentence that changed our relationship forever. "You two need to talk like adults." I looked at her. Adults do not ambush people. She flinched. Claire stood. "Please." I asked her to do this. Of course she did. Claire had always been good at finding soft doors into locked rooms. My mother was the softest door she could find. I turned to leave. My mother grabbed my arm. "Matthew, marriage is hard." I pulled my arm away. Marriage did not cheat on me. Her face hardened. People make mistakes. There it was. The same word. From everyone. Mistake. I looked around the room and felt something inside me settle. Calmly. Permanently. "You knew she would be here." My mother did not answer. That was answer enough. I nodded. Then looked at Claire. "You do not get to use my family to corner me." She started crying. "I am trying to save our marriage." "No, you are trying to save yourself from the consequences of destroying it." My mother gasped. "That is cruel." I turned to her. What she did was cruel. What I am doing is called leaving. Then I walked out. That night, I blocked my mother for 2 weeks. Not forever. Just long enough to make a point. Access to me was no longer automatic. Blood did not excuse betrayal. Love did not excuse manipulation. And family did not mean handing someone a knife because they cried after stabbing you. Meanwhile, Brandon vanished. At least from my life. No calls. No apology in person. No attempt to face me. But I heard things. People talk. Especially when a scandal hits a friend group. Brandon told people I had abandoned Claire emotionally. That our marriage was already dead. That he made a mistake but was not the villain. He said he and Claire had found comfort in each other. That phrase reached me through a mutual friend. Found comfort. I almost admired the cowardice. It takes real creativity to turn adultery into emotional healing. Then I learned something else. Something that made the betrayal even uglier. Brandon had been borrowing money from me during the affair. 3 times. Small amounts. $800. $1,200. Then $2,000. He said his truck needed repairs. He said he was behind on rent. He said he was trying to get back on his feet. And like an idiot, I helped him. During the same weeks he was sleeping with my wife. I stared at the bank transfers for a long time. Then printed them, added them to the file. By then, my attorney had started calling it the betrayal folder. Emails, texts, private investigator photos, Claire's letter, bank transfers, screenshots of messages where Claire lied about where she was. It was all there, not because I wanted to stare at it. Because I knew one day someone would try to rewrite the story. And when they did, I wanted the truth organized by date. 2 months after I left, the divorce process turned ugly. Claire wanted the house. She wanted spousal support. She wanted half of my retirement. She wanted me to keep paying the car loan. And through her attorney, she claimed she had been financially dependent on me because I had prioritized my career over her independence. That sentence almost made me laugh. Claire made more than enough money to support herself. She simply spent most of it. Trips. Clothes. Beauty treatments. Expensive lunches. Things I rarely questioned because I trusted her. My lawyer was not amused. He filed a response so sharp even I felt secondhand pain reading it. Then he included the evidence. The affair timeline. The bank transfers. The hotel receipts. The investigator report. The letter. The text messages. Suddenly Claire's attorney became much quieter. Funny how that works. People love emotional stories until documents enter the room. By the 3rd month, I had moved into a small rental across town. 1 bedroom. Old kitchen. No backyard. No memories. I slept better there than I had in years. The first night, I ordered pizza, sat on the floor, and watched a baseball game on my laptop. No Claire asking why I was working late. No phone lighting up with secrets. No Brandon walking through the door pretending to be my brother. Just silence. At first, the silence hurt. Then it healed. I started going to the gym before work. Started running on weekends. Started cooking again. Started seeing a therapist. Not because I was broken. Because I did not want their betrayal to turn me into someone I did not recognize. My therapist said something I still remember. You are grieving people who are still alive. That was exactly it. Claire was alive. Brandon was alive. But the wife I loved and the friend I trusted were dead. They had been replaced by strangers wearing familiar faces. By the 4th month, my life had structure again. Work. Gym. Therapy. Dinner. Sleep. Repeat. Boring. Stable. Safe. And then, slowly, better. At work, I took on a major project that nobody else wanted. A complicated commercial build with impossible deadlines and angry investors. Normally, I would have avoided the stress. But stress had become familiar. So, I took it. And I crushed it. The project finished ahead of schedule. Under budget. The client was thrilled. My company promoted me to senior regional manager. A huge raise. A bonus. A path toward partnership. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt proud of myself. Not because I had won anything. Because I was still standing. Then, near the end of the 5th month, I received a call from my attorney. His voice sounded different. Careful, Matthew. Something came up. My stomach tightened. What? He paused. It is about Brandon. I sat down. What about him? Another pause. He is in trouble. I looked out the window of my office. For a moment, I said nothing. Then my attorney continued. Financial trouble. Legal trouble, and Claire may be connected to it. That was the first time I heard the word fraud. And it would not be the last. Apparently, after I left, Brandon and Claire decided to turn their relationship into a public one. No more hiding. No more sneaking around. Within weeks of my moving out, they were posting photos together online. Weekend trips. Restaurants. Vacation rentals. Smiling selfies. All the things people do when they are trying to convince the world they are happy. At first, I avoided looking. Then curiosity got the better of me. One night I checked Claire's public profile. That was a mistake. Because there they were. Laughing together. Holding hands. Playing happy couple. The same woman who claimed she was devastated by losing her marriage somehow looked perfectly fine on a beach in Florida. At least, that was what she wanted people to believe. The truth was very different. According to my attorney, Brandon had convinced Claire to invest money into a property development project. Not just her money. Money borrowed from family. Money borrowed from friends. Money borrowed from anyone willing to trust him. Apparently, Brandon had spent years telling people he was one big opportunity away from success. This was supposed to be that opportunity. Luxury rental properties. Short-term vacation homes. Huge returns. Passive income. Financial freedom. I almost laughed. Because it sounded exactly like Brandon. Always chasing shortcuts. Always chasing easy money. Never willing to do the boring work that actually creates success. The problem? The project barely existed. The land was not fully secured. Permits were incomplete. Investors were misled. Funds had disappeared. And several people were demanding answers. One of those people happened to be Claire. Suddenly everything made sense. The expensive vacations. The confidence. The social media posts. They were not celebrating success. They were spending investor money. Money that did not belong to them. My attorney flipped to another page. Bank statements. Transfers. Large withdrawals. Luxury purchases. A leased Mercedes. Designer furniture. Weekend getaways. Thousands of dollars spent while investors waited for updates. Brandon was not building a business. He was financing a lifestyle. And Claire had attached herself to it. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt strangely detached. Like I was reading about strangers. Because the version of Claire I loved no longer existed. The woman in those documents was not my wife. She was someone else's problem. A week later, karma started working faster than anyone expected. One of Brandon's investors filed a lawsuit, then another. Then another. The local business community is smaller than most people realize. News spreads quickly. Soon everyone knew. Brandon's name became toxic. Potential clients disappeared. Investors demanded refunds. Former partners distanced themselves. And then the bank froze several accounts pending investigation. That was when the panic started. I heard all of this through mutual friends. People I had not spoken to in months suddenly started calling. Not because they cared about me. Because everyone loves a train wreck. One evening my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I ignored those calls. Something told me to answer. Hello? Silence. Then a voice. Claire. I recognized it immediately. I almost hung up. Matthew, please do not. Too late. I already regretted answering. What do you want? She started crying instantly. Not subtle tears. Real panic. Everything is falling apart. I closed my eyes. There it was. The first crack. Not in her story. In her fantasy. For months she had been living inside the fantasy. Now reality was finally arriving. What happened? She took a shaky breath. They froze accounts. Accounts. Interesting. Not we, Not us. Accounts. I said nothing, she continued. Brandon says it is temporary. That sentence told me everything. Brandon says. Not lawyers. Not accountants. Not investigators. Brandon. The same man who lied to investors. The same man who lied to me. The same man who slept with his best friend's wife. A true source of credibility. I almost laughed. Then why are you calling me? Silence. Long silence. Finally she whispered. I am scared. For a moment. I felt something. Not love. Not sympathy. Recognition. Because 6 months earlier, I had been scared too. Scared when I found them together. Scared when my marriage collapsed. Scared when my future disappeared. The difference? Nobody called to save me. I had rebuilt my life alone. Now Claire wanted a rescue. Again. The old Matthew would have tried. The new Matthew understood something important. Some people only learn when nobody catches them. I am sorry you are scared. Her breathing caught. For 1 second. I think she believed I was about to help. Then I continued. But that is not my problem anymore. Silence. Then the call ended. Not dramatically. Just a click. I stared at the phone for a moment. Then set it down. And went back to eating dinner. That night I slept perfectly. The next morning brought even bigger news. Brandon had officially been named in a civil fraud complaint. Not criminal. Not yet. But serious enough. Serious enough that attorneys were involved. Serious enough that local newspapers started asking questions. Serious enough that people stopped returning his calls. Then came the final blow. Claire lost her job. Not because of the affair. Not because of Brandon. Because she had spent months missing work. Missing deadlines. Making mistakes. Living inside her fantasy instead of reality. Eventually companies stop caring about your excuses. Consequences arrive. The same way they arrive for everyone. Slowly. Then all at once. By the beginning of month 6, the picture was clear. Brandon was drowning. Claire was unemployed. The lawsuits were growing. The money was disappearing. And for the first time since I walked out of that bedroom, I realized something. Karma was not coming. Karma was already here. And it was just getting started. 6 months from the day I opened my bedroom door and found my wife in bed with my best friend, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. I had just finished a workout. Showered. Made dinner. And settled onto my couch. Life was peaceful. That peace lasted exactly 12 minutes. I stood. Walked toward the front window, looked outside. And froze. Claire was standing on my porch. Beside Brandon. For a moment, I thought I was imagining things. Because neither of them looked like the people I remembered. Claire looked exhausted. Her face thinner, dark circles beneath her eyes. The confident woman from those beach photos was gone. Brandon looked even worse. Unshaven. Wrinkled clothes, tired eyes. Defeated posture. The king and queen of their fantasy kingdom had finally met reality. I almost did not answer. Almost. Then curiosity won. I opened the door. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them spoke. For several seconds, we simply stared at each other. Finally Claire broke. Matthew. Just hearing my name from her felt strange. Like hearing a song from another lifetime. What do you want? No anger. No emotion. Just a question. Brandon looked down. Claire swallowed. We need help. There it was. The real reason. Not closure. Not apology. Help. I almost laughed. 6 months without caring whether I was alive. And now suddenly they needed me. Interesting. What kind of help? Claire looked at Brandon, then back at me. We have hit a rough patch. A rough patch. I nearly smiled. That was what we were calling it now? Not fraud investigations. Not lawsuits. Not unemployment. Not losing your home. A rough patch. Brandon finally spoke. The first words he had said to me since I found them together. Matt. I held up my hand. No. He stopped immediately. Do not call me Matt. Silence. The shame on his face was obvious. Good. He deserved it. Then he tried again. Matthew. I waited. I made mistakes. Mistakes. That word again. Everybody loved that word. Nobody wanted to call things what they were. Betrayal. Lies. Cheating. Manipulation. Cowardice. Those words were too honest. So people used mistakes instead. I folded my arms. What do you want? Brandon looked away. Claire answered. We need a place to stay. I stared at them. Certain I had misheard. A place to stay? She nodded. Just temporarily. For a second, I could not believe it. These two people destroyed my marriage. Destroyed my friendship. Spent 6 months building a life together. And now they wanted to move into my house? The audacity was breathtaking. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. Neither of them joined me. That made it even funnier. You cannot be serious. Claire started crying. Immediately. Like she had practiced it. We have nowhere else to go. I looked at Brandon. What about all those business opportunities? Nothing. What about the investors? Nothing. What about the future you promised her? Still nothing. The silence was answer enough. Then Claire took a step forward. Please. I stepped back. Not because I was afraid. Because I did not want her close enough to touch me. That part of my life was over. I think you are confused. She blinked. What? You seem to think I am still responsible for your problems. Her face fell. I continued. The day I found you two together, you made a choice. Neither of them spoke. You chose each other. Still silence. Now live with that choice. Brandon finally looked up, and for the first time all evening, I saw genuine defeat. Not arrogance. Not excuses. Defeat. We messed up. I nodded. Yes. Claire cried harder. Brandon stared at the ground, and for the first time in 6 months, neither of them had a defense. Because there was not one. The truth had finally caught them. Then Claire took a shaky breath. There is something you do not know. I almost laughed. After 6 months. Suddenly there was a secret. Of course there was. There always is. I folded my arms. Go ahead. Claire looked at Brandon. Brandon immediately looked away. That told me everything before she even opened her mouth. The fantasy was over. And somebody was finally telling the truth. Brandon lied to me. I raised an eyebrow. Only to you? That landed harder than I expected. Claire flinched. Brandon closed his eyes. Good. Let them feel it. Let them sit inside the consequences for once. Claire continued. The business was not real. I nodded. I figured that out. Her eyes widened. You knew? My attorney knew months ago. Silence. That answer seemed to shock her. Because for the first time, she realized something important. While she and Brandon were busy destroying everything, I had been rebuilding. Moving forward, healing, and paying attention. Meanwhile, they were drowning. Claire looked exhausted. Like she had spent weeks carrying a weight she could not put down. Then she said something that surprised me. I invested almost all my savings. That hurt her to admit. I could see it. The shame. The embarrassment. The regret. But she was not finished. I borrowed money from my parents. Another pause. I borrowed money from my sister. Then she looked directly at me. And Brandon knew. Slowly, I turned toward him. He still would not meet my eyes. Coward. Just like before. Claire's voice cracked. He knew the company was failing. Now Brandon looked up. That is not fair. Claire spun toward him immediately. Not fair? The anger in her voice startled me. Apparently this argument had happened before. Many times. You told me investors were coming. Brandon shook his head. They were supposed to. You told me contracts were signed. I thought they would be. You told me we would be fine. Brandon opened his mouth, then closed it. Because there was no defense. Not anymore. The lies had finally reached the end of the road. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for Claire. Almost. Then I remembered the bedroom. The lies. The coffee shop. The letter. The manipulation. And the feeling disappeared. Because Claire was not innocent. She was not some victim who got tricked. She chose Brandon. Repeatedly. Every day for 4 months. Nobody forced her. Nobody manipulated her into betraying me. She made her choice. Then Brandon made his. Now both of them were living with the outcome. Claire turned back toward me. We lost everything. I nodded. Yes. The apartment. I nodded again. Yes. The savings. Yes. My job. Yes. Every answer landed like a hammer. Because none of this surprised me. The only people surprised were them. People who spend months avoiding consequences are always shocked when consequences finally arrive. Then Claire whispered, I do not know what to do. For the first time that night, I answered honestly. You should have thought about that 6 months ago. Silence. Heavy silence. The kind that leaves no room for excuses. Brandon finally stepped forward. Matthew, I owe you an apology. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. 6 months. And now he wanted to apologize. Now? After the money disappeared? After the lawsuits? After Claire lost her job? After nobody else would help? Interesting timing. I do not want your apology. His face tightened. I know. No, I do not think you do. For the first time, I looked directly into his eyes. The same eyes I had trusted for 15 years. The same eyes that looked away while he betrayed me. You did not just sleep with my wife. Brandon swallowed. You lied to me every day. Silence. You sat in my house. Nothing. You borrowed money from me. Nothing. You shook my hand. Nothing. Then I took a step closer. And all the while, you knew exactly what you were doing. For a second, I thought he might cry. Instead, he looked away. Again. Because that is what cowards do. They avoid eye contact when truth arrives. Then Claire said something unexpected. Something neither of us saw coming. I am leaving him. Brandon's head snapped up. What? Claire did not look at him. She kept staring at me. I am done. The desperation in her voice was real. Unfortunately for her, it was 6 months too late. Brandon looked furious. Seriously? She laughed bitterly. You lied about everything. Brandon threw his hands into the air. And you did not? That shut her up. Immediately. Because he was right. Different lies. Same result. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke, then the argument started. Right there on my porch. Accusations. Blame. Regret. Everything they had been holding in for months finally exploded. I stood there listening. Not because I enjoyed it. Because I was witnessing something important. The truth. When the fantasy died, all that remained was reality. And reality looked ugly. Very ugly. Eventually, Claire started crying again. Brandon started pacing. And I realized something. Neither of them had come for help. Not really. They had come for rescue. They wanted someone to save them from the consequences of their own choices. That someone used to be me. Not anymore. I opened the front door wider. For a brief moment, both of them looked hopeful. Then I stepped aside. Not to invite them in, to reach a small cabinet near the entrance. I pulled out 2 business cards. One belonged to a bankruptcy attorney. The other belonged to a career placement service. I handed them over. Claire stared. Brandon looked confused. What is this? I shrugged. Help. Neither of them smiled, because it was not the help they wanted. They wanted money. A place to stay. A second chance. Instead, I gave them resources. The kind adults use when life falls apart. Claire's hands shook, tears rolled down her face. That is it? I nodded. That is it. For a long time, nobody moved. Then Claire whispered, I thought you would forgive me. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Not because I missed her. Because it revealed everything. She really believed I would still be waiting. Still hoping. Still loving her. Still ready to put her back together. I shook my head slowly. No. The word barely left my mouth. But it changed everything. Because she finally understood. There would be no reconciliation. No miracle. No second chance. No version of reality where she came back and fixed this. That story was over. Completely over. For a few moments, nobody spoke. Claire stood on my porch crying. Brandon looked defeated. And I felt something I never thought I would feel again. Peace. Not victory. Not revenge. Peace. Because 6 months earlier, I would have given anything to have my old life back. Now? I would not trade my new life for anything. Claire wiped her eyes. Are you happy? I almost laughed. Because 6 months ago, the answer would have been no. Today? Very different story. Yes. One simple word. But it hit her like a truck. Because she needed me to be miserable. Not consciously. Not maliciously. But people who destroy relationships always hope the person they hurt stays frozen in place. It helps them justify what they did. If I am happy, maybe I was not really the victim. If I am miserable, maybe leaving was worth it. Unfortunately for Claire, reality was not cooperating. I was happier than I had been in years. And she could see it. The house. My appearance. My confidence. Everything about me looked different. Because I was different. Then Brandon surprised me. For the first time all evening, he spoke honestly. You look better. I stared at him. He shrugged. You do. There was no sarcasm. No bitterness. Just truth. And that truth hurt him. Because he knew why. I was not carrying their chaos anymore. I was not financing Brandon's bad decisions. I was not trying to save Claire from herself. I was not sacrificing my peace for people who did not value it. The burden was gone. Then my phone buzzed. A text message. I glanced at the screen. And immediately smiled. Claire noticed. Of course she did. Who is it? I hesitated. Not because I owed her an answer. Because I did not. But something told me honesty was appropriate. Someone I'm seeing. Silence. Complete silence. Claire looked like someone had punched her. The timing could not have been more perfect. The woman texting me was named Emily. We met 3 months earlier. At a charity event. Emily was kind. Honest. Stable. No games. No drama. No secret phones. No mysterious late nights. Just honesty. Something I had learned to appreciate. A lot. Claire looked down. Then quietly asked. Does she know about me? I nodded. Everything. That seemed to hurt even more. Because Emily knew the whole story. And stayed anyway. Then Claire whispered. I ruined everything. For the first time all night, I agreed with her. Yes. No lecture. No speech. Just honesty. Because sometimes the truth is enough. Brandon rubbed his face, looking older than I remembered. Tired. Worn out. Defeated. Then he said something I never expected. I was jealous of you. That got my attention. Claire looked surprised too. Brandon laughed bitterly. You had everything. I stared at him. He continued. The house. Nothing. The marriage. Nothing. The career. Nothing. The stability. Then he shook his head. And I wanted it. For a second, nobody spoke. Because deep down, we all knew he was telling the truth. The affair was never about love. It was about envy. Brandon did not just want Claire. He wanted my life. The same way some people want a car. Or a promotion. Or a house. He wanted what belonged to someone else because he believed it would make him happy. Instead, it destroyed him. Then he laughed again. A sad laugh. The funny part? I waited. I lost everything anyway. Yes. He did. And that was karma. Not lightning from the sky. Not cosmic punishment. Just consequences. Simple consequences. One decision at a time, one lie at a time, one betrayal at a time, until there was nothing left. Eventually, Claire stepped backward. Then another step. She knew it was over. Finally. Completely. No speeches would change it. No tears would fix it. No apology would erase it. The story had ended months ago. They were just arriving late. Claire looked at me one last time. I really did love you. I thought about that. Longer than she probably expected. Then I answered honestly. I think part of you did. Tears rolled down her face, because she knew exactly what I meant. Part of her loved me. But not enough. Not enough to stay loyal. Not enough to tell the truth. Not enough to protect what we built. Love without character eventually collapses. Always. Then Brandon extended his hand. A final attempt. A goodbye. An apology. Whatever it was. I looked at it. Then shook my head. No. His hand slowly lowered. Not out of anger. Acceptance. Some things do not get repaired. Some bridges stay burned. And that is okay. Because not every ending is supposed to become a new beginning. Finally, they turned around. Walked toward the driveway. Slowly. Quietly. Together. Not as soulmates. Not as winners. Just two people carrying the weight of their own choices. I watched them reach the street. Then disappear into the darkness. And that was the last time I ever saw either of them. 3 months later, the divorce finalized. The house sold. Assets divided. Paperwork completed. The chapter officially closed. Around the same time, my promotion became permanent. Then something even better happened. My company offered me an equity partnership. For years, I had dreamed about that opportunity. And now it was real. The irony was not lost on me. The worst year of my life had quietly become one of the best. A year later, Emily and I bought a home together. Not a mansion. Not a luxury estate. Just a beautiful house near a lake. Peaceful. Quiet. Real. One evening, we sat on the back deck watching the sunset. Emily leaned against my shoulder and asked a simple question. Do you ever think about them? I knew exactly who she meant. Claire and Brandon. I thought about it for a moment. Then answered honestly. Not very often. Emily smiled. That is good. I nodded. Because it was. The opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference, and I had finally arrived there. A few months later, I heard one final update through mutual friends. Claire moved to another state. Started over. New job. Small apartment. Quiet life. Brandon left town entirely. Nobody seemed to know where he went. Or maybe nobody cared. Either way, it did not matter. Their story no longer belonged to me. The truth is, people think karma is dramatic. It is usually not. Most of the time, karma looks like waking up one day and realizing you traded something valuable for something temporary. And by the time you understand the difference, it is too late. I came home early and found my wife in bed with my best friend. So I left. 6 months later, karma caught up with them. But not because I made it happen. Not because I got revenge, not because I destroyed their lives. They did that themselves. All I did was walk away. And sometimes, walking away is the most powerful thing you will ever do.